Take a look at these three friends. All three of them visit their own place of faith. While Akbar and Anthony exits their holy place, Amar has a choice to make. His faith is monetized. From a 500 rupee darshan to a paid shoe rack, at every point his wallet needs to make a choice. It's not because Mandir is greedy, but Mandir has to pay a tax, something which churches and mosques don't have to. In fact, this system of taxing one's faith isn't done for temple's welfare or to protect the system, but to dismantle it. Not by the outsiders, but from people within. Coming closer to a future where Hindu institutions are very deliberately hollowed out. This is the story of how Hindus closed the doors of Hinduism. In Bharat, Hindu temples have always been a flourishing ecosystem, more than just a place to pray. In the Chola-era, temples housed arogyashalas, Ayurvedic hospitals, nurses, physicians, and surgeons all lived there to treat patients and received their salary from the temple in grains, and it was free for everyone. Temples also housed schools run by the priests, who were the gurus carrying the knowledge of philosophy, math, physics, astronomy, and more, passing it all down to their disciples. Temples were also a bank. Their funds funded local artisans, weavers, and traders. The temple's welfare system stood above the idea of helping the poor. It became a social glue to the community. And if you can imagine all of this at a bigger scale, like how British found over 1 lakh temples in just Madras, where most districts have at least 300 to 400 major temples, it became a self-sustaining, decentralized network of community welfare without the state's fundings. But the network that took centuries to build will only take 100 years to be dismantled, and it all starts from London. In 1817, the British East India Company became the first foreign entity to seize Hindu temple administration. They installed the Madras Regulation Act 7, a law that shackled the temples to this day. In the guise of protection and to avoid mismanagement from Brahmins, the British accessed the temple's wealth and redirected the funding route to the London. They looted the wealth of entire generation and welfare of the communities in an instant. They went a step further in 1927 with Madras HR&CE Act enacted by the Justice Party, where they stripped Brahmins from the position and replaced them with the British officials. The people who were running the temple's functions, with the knowledge passed from their gurus for ages, were no longer deciding authority now, and the uneducated government officials didn't accept grain as their salaries and opted for money. The British control went beyond land and loot. They stripped the institutional spine of Hindu society, further expanding the spiritual void. And in 1947, when India got independent, you'd expect independent India to dismantle this colonial extraction law, right? And 4 years later, we received our answer. In 1951, Madras passed the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Act. This act wasn't something new. It just made the same pre-existing British law permanent. Again, under the guise of protection from mismanagement. The law kept the government officials, taxed the temples, and money was now flowing to the government. The same nation that gave birth to this ecosystem is now following the colonizers' footsteps. In 1987, Andhra Pradesh took it further than anyone under their act. Section 16 removed hereditary trustee roles, abolishing temples' caretaker families. Section 25 handed bureaucrats the authority to set schedules for worship, abolishing Agama Shastra, a specific sampradaya of a temple. Section 34 terminated hereditary archaka rights, abolishing priests' generational role. Section 144 discarded priest shares in hundi income, abolishing their rights to temples' lands. The entire economic and cultural foundation that revolved around the temple vanished. It has now become just a place to pray and tax. But it also did more damage. It siphoned away any interest for a person to be a priest. What was once a profession of multi-level generalists now remains buried under the ideals of superstitions. Yet the money flows from the temples, but not towards it. In Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, temples are required to pay up to 12% of their gross income and an additional 12% audit fee. 15 to 20% of whatever devotee drops into the hundi is siphoned off as administrative charges by the state. Barely any of this money goes back to the temple maintenance or Vedic learning. It pays the salaries of bureaucrats, their pensions and vehicles. And when the money does go to the temple for their renovation, it often does more damage than repair. During Kumbhabhisheka ceremonies, HR&CE contractors used high-pressure sandblasting, permanently erasing Chola and Pandya-era inscriptions and damaging ancient stone structures. At the Sarangapani temple, there are carved panels describing ancient dance postures on walls, and texts that identified those postures were applied with cement over it by the contractors renovating it, damaging it permanently to the point of no return. And the negligence doesn't stop here. You know, it's possible that the deities you worship in the temples aren't the ones that have been worshipped for centuries. Between 1960 and 1980, Vaman Ghia and Subhash Kapoor exploited HR&CE's lack of scientific idol inventories and replaced priceless Chola bronzes with cheap modern replicas. HR&CE, which benefits from the tax of the temples and is filled with funding, doesn't seem to spare money in overlooking security or scantity of our temples. But the most uncomfortable part isn't about the laws and temples either. It's about what happens outside the faith and the people who benefit from it.
Kyunki they have the money, churches have the money, mosques have the money to make hospitals, to make schools, to do this kind of thing, incentivize. अगर हिंदू टेम्पल्स के पास अपना पैसा हो, वो ऐसे हजारों हॉस्पिटल खड़े कर दे. लोग कन्वर्ट नहीं करेंगे, कहेंगे भाई मैं क्रिश्चियन नहीं बनूंगा क्योंकि मेरा यहाँ पे हिंदू हॉस्पिटल है.
In 1987, there were approximately 1 lakh churches in India. That number had risen to 350,000. These are more churches that exist in the entire USA. While the land is allocated massively to the churches, look at what happens to Hindu land.
The controversial allotment of 20 acres to the Oberoi Hotel, asking if temple land was meant for hotels serving meat and kebabs.
Not just the land, but even employees.
The Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam has suspended 4 employees after allegations surfaced that they were practicing Christianity while being employed in a Hindu religious institution.
And the exploitation doesn't even stop here. In June 2017, Firhad Hakim, a Muslim politician, was appointed chairman of a Tarakeshwar Shiva Temple Development Board, a temple that is 288 years old and draws millions of Hindu pilgrims every year. He later resigned in 2019 due to a controversy, but the fact that this appointment was legally possible just shows how laws are designed. As on the other side, under the Article 25 to 30 of the Indian Constitution, guarantees every religious minority the right to establish and administer their own institutions. Their properties, funds, and structure remains untouched and not interfered by the people of other faiths. Law protects them, but exploit the Hindu faith under the same ideals of secularism. And yet, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Stories of mismanagement and outright scams involving Hindu temples are now surfacing almost daily. Take a look at these examples.
13,679 ghee packets worth over 13 lakhs were sold without remittance, with additional shortages pushing potential losses of 22 lakhs.
As investigators probe allegations of missing gold from Ayyappan shrine, court documents now reveal that the temple's sponsor had once sought permission to use leftover temple gold to help conduct a wedding.
Karnataka's 2024 amendment bill mandated that major temples hand over 10% of their earnings and mid-tier temples 5%, funneled into state coffers designated for minority welfare schemes, which allegedly includes 330 crores for Waqf development and Christian community programs. If you zoom out a little, and you will find this no different than jizya levied on Hindus during medieval Islamic empires. The same mechanism has taken a different shape today, and with the help of constitution, it's stronger than ever.